Welcome, dear listener, and thank you for being here. Tonight, we travel gently back in time to Japan, as it was about 300 years ago, during the peaceful Edo period. This was a world without electricity, without engines, without constant noise, a world guided by lantern light, routine, and quiet understanding. A Japan at rest. As you listen, there is nothing you need to do. You don't need to remember names or dates. Simply let the pace slow and allow the night of the past to settle around you. If you enjoy calm history stories like this one, please consider subscribing to Go to Sleep Historian. Your support helps keep this space peaceful and growing. Settle in now. Adjust your blanket, and when the spoken story comes to an end, soft, relaxing music will begin to carry you gently into sleep. When the sun sets over a peaceful land early, Edo Japan, c. 1700, as the sun begins its slow descent beyond the low hills and distant forests, Japan enters one of its most familiar and cherished moments of the day. Light softens colors deep. The sharp brightness of afternoon fades into a warm, amber glow that rests gently on rooftops, rice fields, and winding paths. This is not a land bracing for danger. This is not a country preparing for war. This is Japan at peace. Nearly 3 centuries have passed since the last great battle shook the islands. The age of roaming armies, burning castles, and clashing banners has settled into memory. Now, under the rule of the Tokugawa shoguns, the country breathes differently. Slowly. Carefully. Quietly. As dusk spreads across the land, people move with unhurried purpose. Shopkeepers slide wooden shutters closed with soft thuds. Farmers rinse their hands in cool water at the edge of the fields, brushing away the day's labor. Children are culled indoors, their laughter fading behind paper walls. Smoke rises in thin lines from cooking fires, drifting upward and dissolving into the evening sky. Time itself seems to relax. In villages and cities alike, the approach of night is not sudden. It arrives gradually, like a visitor expected and welcomed. Shadows lengthen across packed earth roads. Wind stirs bamboo leaves, producing a gentle clatter that blends with distant footsteps and the low murmur of conversation. There's no electricity here. No glowing screens. No engines humming through the dark. Instead, night is guided by the natural world and by habit passed down through generations. In Edo, centuries later, as Tokyo, the city stretches wide and low, a vast sea of wooden buildings, canals, bridges, and narrow streets. It is already among the largest cities on Earth, yet it remains deeply human in scale. As the sun sinks lower, the city's edges blur into twilight. River water reflects the sky in rippling bands of gold and violet. Temple bells ring somewhere in the distance, one deep note, then another. Their sound is not a call to urgency, but a reminder. The day is ending. Rest is approaching. Throughout the country, people acknowledge this hour in small, quiet ways. A bow before a household altar. A pause to watch the sky darken. A final glance toward the fields or the street before stepping indoors. Japan, in this moment, is held together not by force, but by rhythm. The Tokugawa peace has reshaped life in countless subtle ways. Samurai still wear their swords, but they rarely draw them. Their role has changed from warriors to administrators, guards, and scholars. The streets are orderly. Travel is regulated. Violence is rare enough to feel almost out of place. This order is not loud. It does not announce itself. It simply exists. As lanterns are lit, one by one, their paper skins glowing softly, the night begins to take form. Light spills gently onto wooden walkways and stone steps, illuminating just enough of the world to move safely through it. Faces appear briefly in the glow, then vanish again into shadow. Inside homes, families gather for their evening meal. Rice steams quietly. Bowls are set down with care. Conversation is low, unhurried, and familiar. There is comfort in repetition, in knowing that tomorrow will resemble today, and that tonight will unfold as it always has. Outside, the air cools. Crickets begin their steady song. Somewhere beyond the fields, a frog answers. Water flows through irrigation channels, whispering softly as it moves toward distant rivers. This is a land deeply attuned to its surroundings. The people of Edo Japan do not seek to conquer nature or escape it. They live within it, listening closely, adjusting their lives to its signals. The night sky grows darker now. Stars appear gradually, one by one, as if testing the calm before fully revealing themselves. The moon, not yet high, casts a pale light over rooftops and treetops alike. There is no fear in this darkness. Darkness here is familiar. It is expected. It is respected. In cities, night watchmen prepare for their rounds. In villages, elders settle onto woven mats. Travelers reach inns and remove their sandals at the door. Monks light candles in temple halls, their flames steady and small. Across the islands, thousands of separate lives move toward rest in quiet harmony. This story begins not with a single hero, nor with a great event, but with a shared moment, a country exhaling as day gives way to night. In the chapters ahead, we will walk these lantern-lit streets. We will sit beside rivers and beneath shrine trees. We will enter homes, temples, and silent fields. But for now, we remain here at the edge of evening, at the beginning of rest. And as Japan settles into the night, so too can you. The Tokugawa order. Peace after the storm. Early Edo Japan. Early 1700s, long before the quiet evenings of the Edo period, Japan knew a very different rhythm. For generations, the country had been shaped by war. Powerful families fought for land and loyalty. Armies marched across provinces. Castles rose and fell. Villages were often caught between rival lords, never knowing when conflict might return. That long age of unrest finally ended at the beginning of the 17th century, when Tokugawa Ieyasu emerged victorious from years of struggle. After his triumph, he did something no leader before him had managed to sustain. He brought lasting peace. By the early 1700s, nearly 100 years had passed since the last major civil war. An entire generation had grown up without seeing battle. Another had never heard the sound of armies at all. For most people alive during this time, peace was not new anymore. It was normal. The Tokugawa shoguns ruled from Edo, exercising power over the entire country. The emperor still lived in Kyoto and remained a respected figure, but real authority rested with the shogunate. This system was firm, carefully structured, and designed to prevent the return of chaos. Japan was divided into domains, each controlled by a daimyo, or regional lord. These lords were allowed to govern their lands, but they were closely supervised. Their movements were restricted. Their loyalty was constantly tested. Most were required to spend part of each year in Edo, leaving their families there as a form of guarantee. This arrangement reduced rebellion without constant fighting. Control was maintained through rules, routine, and observation, rather than open violence. For ordinary people, this structure created predictability. Laws were clear. Social roles were defined. Everyone knew where they stood. At the top were the samurai. Below them were farmers, artisans, and merchants. Movement between classes was rare, but within each group, life followed stable patterns. While this system limited freedom, it also removed uncertainty. People woke knowing what their day would involve. They went to sleep expecting tomorrow to be much the same. The samurai, once defined by constant warfare, experienced the greatest change. Many still carried swords, but their purpose had shifted. Instead of fighting, they served as officials, guards, and administrators. They collected taxes, kept records, enforced laws, and supervised local order. Training now emphasized discipline, loyalty, and education as much as combat skills. Reading, writing, and moral instruction became part of a samurai's daily life. Violence was discouraged, not encouraged. Disputes were handled through authority and procedure rather than personal revenge. For the farmers, peace meant consistency. Rice cultivation required careful planning and long-term effort. With fewer raids and battles, fields could be worked year after year without interruption. Villages became more stable. Families remained rooted to the same land for generations. Taxes were heavy, but predictable. In many places, this was preferable to the destruction and loss that war had once brought. Artisans benefited as well. Crafts such as carpentry, pottery, textile weaving, and metalwork flourished. With cities growing and people living more settled lives, Demand increased for everyday goods, tools, furniture, clothing, utensils. Merchants, though officially low in social rank, found opportunities in this peaceful economy. Trade within Japan expanded. Markets became reliable. Money circulated steadily. Entire districts of Edo grew around commerce and services. What tied all of this together was order. The Tokugawa government valued stability above all else. Change was viewed with caution. Innovation was allowed, but slowly. Rules were adjusted carefully, not suddenly. Customs were preserved. This mindset shaped daily behavior. Loud displays of emotion were discouraged. Excessive ambition was frowned upon. Harmony was prized over individual expression. People learned to move carefully within the boundaries set for them. At first glance, this might seem restrictive, but for those living in the Edo period, it offered something rare in human history: long-term peace. Nights were quiet because danger was rare. Travelers could walk roads without constant fear of attack. Inns operated on regular schedules. Town gates closed at predictable hours. Night watchmen patrolled calmly, not nervously. Crime existed, but it was controlled. Punishments were strict enough to deter most wrongdoing. Public order was maintained without constant displays of force. This atmosphere changed how people related to time, without war disrupting life. The future felt stable. People planned seasons ahead, sometimes years. Buildings were constructed with care, meant to last. Family traditions deepened. Evenings became a reliable pause in the day. As darkness fell, people trusted that night would pass peacefully. Lanterns were lit not to ward off danger, but simply to see. Doors were closed more out of habit than fear. The Tokugawa order did not make life easy, but it made it calm. This calm shaped thought and belief. Philosophies emphasizing discipline, acceptance, and balance became central. Confucian ideas about duty and hierarchy blended with older Japanese traditions. Zen Buddhism offered mental clarity and restraint. Together, these influences encouraged people to find peace, not through excitement, but through control and simplicity. By the early 1700s, this system felt deeply rooted. Most people could not imagine Japan any other way. War belonged to stories, not memory. Swords were symbols, not tools of daily survival. As night settled over towns and villages, this order continued quietly. Officials completed records by lamplight. Guards took slow steps through familiar streets. Families finished their meals and prepared for sleep. Nothing dramatic happened, and that was the point. In the stillness of the Edo night, the absence of chaos was its greatest feature. And within that calm, daily life could unfold without fear. A country turned inward. Japan under Sakoku. Early 1700s. By the early 18th century, Japan had made a quiet but decisive choice about its place in the world. Rather than expanding outward or competing with distant powers, the country turned inward. This decision shaped everyday life in ways both subtle and profound. The policy that guided this inward focus was known as Sakoku, often translated as closed country. Under this system, Japan strictly limited contact with foreign nations. Most outsiders were not allowed to enter. Japanese citizens were forbidden to leave. Trade was controlled, supervised, and kept deliberately small. This was not done out of fear alone. It was done to preserve order. The Tokugawa shogunate believed that foreign influence, no weapons, unfamiliar religions, and competing political ideas could destabilize the peace they had worked so hard to establish. Isolation, in their view, was a form of protection. For the people living under this system, the outside world slowly faded into abstraction. Few had ever seen a foreigner. Fewer still had spoken to one. Stories of distant lands existed, but they were vague and often outdated. Maps showed islands and seas beyond Japan's shores, but those places felt far away in both distance and relevance. Life did not depend on what happened elsewhere. Instead, attention focused inward on local villages, nearby towns, seasonal changes, and familiar routines. Ports that once welcomed traders from many lands grew quiet. Ships still moved along Japan's coast and rivers, but voyages across open oceans were rare and carefully monitored. One small artificial island, Dejima, in Nagasaki Bay, served as the main point of contact with the outside world. Even there, foreign merchants lived under strict rules and constant supervision. Most people never heard of Dejima at all. This isolation created a self-contained society. Goods were produced locally. Skills were passed down within families. Styles of dress, food, and architecture developed without external pressure to change. As a result, daily life became deeply rooted in tradition. Evenings in Edo, Japan reflected this inward focus. Without foreign news or distant concerns, people spoke about immediate matters. The weather, the harvest, a neighbor's illness, a festival approaching next month. There was comfort in this narrow horizon. When night fell, there were no rumors of distant wars or political upheaval beyond the sea. The world ended at the shoreline, and that boundary felt stable. Travel within Japan was regulated but common. Pilgrimages, trade journeys, and official business brought people from one region to another. Roads were maintained, checkpoints monitored movement. Travelers carried permits and followed established routes. These journeys reinforced a sense of national familiarity. Landscapes changed, dialects shifted slightly, customs varied, but all within a shared cultural framework. Foreignness existed only as an idea, not a presence. This inward orientation also shaped education. Learning focused on Japanese history, ethics, and classical texts from China that had long been absorbed into local thought. New philosophies from abroad rarely entered circulation. Knowledge was deep rather than broad. Art followed the same pattern. Painters depicted familiar scenes: bridges, rivers, mountains, city streets, seasonal flowers. Writers focused on everyday life, human behavior, and the passing of time. Theater portrayed domestic stories more often than heroic conquest. Even entertainment was introspective. In the evenings, people gathered not to be amazed by novelty, but to enjoy refinement. A well-told story, a familiar melody, a skilled performance that followed known patterns with quiet precision. This consistency made nights predictable. Lanterns illuminated the same streets night after night. The same shop signs hung in place. The same footsteps echoed at the same hours. The absence of foreign influence also meant that change came slowly. Fashion evolved over decades rather than years. Architecture remained wooden and low. Cities expanded outward rather than upward, while other parts of the world experienced rapid shifts driven by exploration and empire. Japan moved at a steady pace. For many, this slowness was reassuring. Families passed down the same tools, recipes, and customs. Children learned trades from parents. Elders expected that their grandchildren would live much as they had. The night reflected this continuity. Darkness arrived at the same time. Candles were lit the same way. Futons were laid out in familiar rooms. Sleep came without interruption from distant events. There were drawbacks, of course. Isolation, limited access to new ideas and technologies. Medical knowledge progressed slowly. Certain resources were scarce. Social mobility was constrained. But for those living in Edo, Japan, the benefits of stability often outweighed the costs. The country felt complete within itself. As the evening deepened, the inward focus of society became even more apparent. Doors closed, streets quieted. Attention turned fully to the household. Inside, families shared the final moments of the day. Outside, the wider world faded into shadow. Japan, surrounded by sea and bound by its own rules, rested securely within its borders. No ships arrived in the night, carrying news of distant lands. No unfamiliar voices disturbed the calm. No sudden changes threatened tomorrow. Only the familiar sounds remained: the wind, the insects, the slow movement of water. In this enclosed world, peace did not depend on constant vigilance. It depended on separation, routine, and shared understanding. And as people settled into sleep, they did so knowing that the world they would wake to would be much the same as the one they left behind. Edo, the sleeping giant city. Edo in the early 1700s. By the early 18th century, Edo had become the center of life in Japan. It was not the capital in name, but in practice it held power, people, and purpose. From Tsuwaidlo City, the Tokugawa shoguns governed the country, and from all directions, roads led steadily toward it. Edo was already one of the largest cities in the world. Hundreds of thousands of people lived within its boundaries. Some estimates placed its population near 1 million. Yet despite its size, the city did not feel crowded in the way modern cities do. Buildings were low, streets were narrow, and open spaces were woven throughout neighborhoods. Wood was the primary material. Houses, shops, bridges, warehouses, and even many official buildings were built from timber. Roofs were tiled or thatched. Walls were light and flexible, made to adapt rather than resist. This design reflected both practicality and experience. Fires were a constant risk, and earthquakes were not uncommon. Structures were built to be repaired, rebuilt, and replaced without great ceremony. Edo was divided into districts, each with its own character. Samurai neighborhoods were quieter, more orderly, and set back from busy streets. Merchant areas were lively during the day, filled with trade, noise, and movement. Artisan quarters smelled of wood shavings, dye, metal, and lacquer. As evening approached, these differences softened. The busy parts of the city slowed first. Shops closed their doors. Goods were secured. Voices lowered. Foot traffic thinned. In the samurai districts, the change was subtle, as the day had already been restrained. Bridges spanned Edo's many rivers and canals, connecting neighborhoods like threads in fabric. During the day, these waterways carried boats loaded with rice, firewood, and supplies. At night, they became quiet ribbons of dark water reflecting lantern light. Edo did not glow after sunset. It dimmed. Lanterns were placed sparingly. They lit entrances, corners, and crossings, but much of the city remained in shadow. This was intentional. Light was precious, and excess was unnecessary. Moving through Edo at night required familiarity. Residents knew which streets curved where, which bridges were steep, which paths narrowed unexpectedly. Visitors moved slowly, guided by memory and the soft guidance of light. The city's sound changed with the light. During the day, Edo was filled with calls, bargaining, tools, and footsteps. At night, those sounds faded, replaced by quieter ones, the creak of wood, the splash of oars, distant voices carried by air. Watchtowers stood at intervals, manned by guards who observed rather than intervened. Their presence was reassuring, not imposing. They were part of the city's structure, as expected as the bridges and canals. Fires were the greatest danger after dark. Because of this, strict rules governed the use of flame. Candles were watched carefully. Cooking fires were extinguished early. Patrols paid close attention to smoke or unusual light. This constant awareness made nights disciplined and controlled. Inside homes, space was used efficiently. Rooms served multiple purposes. During the day, they were open and active. At night, they were rearranged. Furniture was minimal. Futons were unrolled. Lamps were dimmed. Walls made of paper allowed sound to travel easily. Because of this, people were mindful of noise. Voices were kept low. Movements were careful. Courtesy extended beyond the household. This awareness of others shaped Edo's night culture. Even in such a large city, people behaved as though they were always being quietly observed. As darkness deepened, official gates at certain points were closed. Movement slowed further. Only those with reason remained out late. Guards, messengers, and travelers staying near inns. For most residents, the night was a time for rest, not activity. Yet, Edo never fully slept. Some districts remained faintly active. Night watchmen made their rounds. Boatmen secured vessels. Temple caretakers tended lamps. A few inns kept doors open for late arrivals. Still, compared to daylight, the city felt suspended, paused between one day and the next. The absence of artificial noise made natural sounds clearer. Wind moved through wooden structures. Water lapped against canal walls. Insects filled the spaces between footsteps. From a distance, the city appeared as a scattered pattern of small lights surrounded by darkness. No towering structures, no illuminated skyline, just a wide, quiet spread of human life settling into rest. Edo's size did not make it restless. Its organization made it calm. People trusted the city to hold together through the night. They trusted the rules, the patrols, and each other. This trust allowed them to let go of the day without anxiety. As lamps were extinguished one by one, neighborhoods faded into shadow. The city's edges blurred. Edo became less a place of activity and more a landscape of quiet forms and familiar paths. For those lying down to sleep, the city's vastness was not overwhelming. It was comforting. It meant supply lines would continue. Order would be maintained. Tomorrow would arrive as expected. In the stillness of Edo at night, the scale of the city did not press inward. Instead, it expanded outward, allowing each household its own quiet space. This was the sleeping giant present, stable and silent beneath the night sky. Lantern light and paper walls. Lanterns provide the main source of light. Made of wood and paper, they hold small flames fueled by oil or candles. The light they produce is warm and limited, illuminating only part of a room. Shadows remain, but they are soft rather than threatening. Lighting is intentional. Lamps are placed low. Excess light is avoided. There is no reason to brighten a room more than necessary. As evening begins, families finish their daily tasks. Cooking fires are put out early to reduce the risk of fire. Pots are cleaned. Utensils are stacked neatly. Mats are brushed and rearranged. Rooms serve many purposes. A space used for meals during the day becomes a sleeping area at night. Furniture is minimal and often stored away when not in use. This flexibility keeps homes uncluttered and easy to manage. Shoes and sandals are left at the entrance. Floors are kept clean. Tatami mats cover much of the interior, offering a firm but comfortable surface for sitting and sleeping. As darkness deepens, futons are brought out and laid carefully on the mats. Pillows are placed near the head. Blankets are adjusted for the season. These routines are familiar and unhurried. Inside the home, family members gather quietly. Conversation is gentle. Topics are ordinary plans for the next day. Whether a neighbor's visit, there is no need to speak loudly or at length. Children are guided toward sleep early. They are washed, dressed in simple night clothing, and settled onto their bedding. Elders take their time, stretching or sitting quietly before lying down. In many homes, a small household altar stands against a wall. It may honor ancestors or local spirits. A short moment of attention is given, perhaps a bow, perhaps a pause. There is no ceremony, only acknowledgement. Lantern light flickers across wooden beams and paper panels. Shadows move slowly as people shift positions. Outside sounds pass through faintly, the distant call of a watchman, the soft splash of water, insects continuing their steady rhythm. Privacy in Edo homes is not absolute, but it is understood. Paper walls allow the presence of others to be felt without intrusion. Neighbors are near, but not close enough to disturb. This arrangement encourages awareness. People consider how their actions affect those around them. Noise is reduced naturally. Movements become deliberate. The thin walls also connect to the household to the outside world in subtle ways. Moonlight filters through. Wind makes the panels rustle slightly. Rain taps gently against the structure. The boundary between indoors and outdoors is light, not heavy. As lamps are dimmed or extinguished, rooms fall into shadow. The glow behind the paper walls becomes a faint outline rather than a bright source. One by one, lights disappear across the neighborhood. From the street, homes appear as simple shapes, their interiors hinted at by a soft glow that fades as sleep approaches. Inside, bodies relax. Breathing slows. The day's labor recedes. People are accustomed to darkness. Complete illumination is neither expected nor desired. Eyes adjust. The absence of light signals rest rather than uncertainty. This environment encourages early sleep. Without strong light, the body responds naturally to night. There is no struggle to remain awake. Fatigue arrives quietly. As families settle, the sounds within the house diminish. Mats no longer shift. Voices stop. Only the faintest movements remain. Beyond the walls, Edo continues its slow transition into deeper night. But within these homes, the most important work of the day is complete. Rest begins. Lantern light has done its part. Paper walls hold the night gently at bay while allowing its presence to be felt. The household becomes still. In this calm, sleep comes not as an escape, but as a natural continuation of the day. The night watch and the sound of time. As most of Edo settles into rest, a small number of people remain awake. Their role is not to disturb the quiet, but to maintain it. These are the night watchmen, guards, and officials whose presence allows the city to sleep without concern. In Edo, Japan, time is not measured by clocks as it is today. Instead, the night is divided into watches, marked by sound rather than numbers. Bells, wooden clappers, and voices signal the passing hours, not to hurry anyone, but to remind them that order continues, even after dark. The night watch begins shortly after sunset. Watchmen gather at designated points, guard houses, intersections, bridges, and near important buildings. They carry lanterns, poles, and wooden clappers. Their clothing is practical, designed for movement and visibility rather than display. They do not rush. Their patrols follow familiar routes, repeated night after night. Streets, alleys, riverbanks, and gates are checked in a steady pattern. Nothing new is expected, and that expectation itself is a sign of stability. One of their primary concerns is fire. Because Edo is built mostly of wood, fire is the greatest threat to the city. Even a small flame left unattended can spread quickly. For this reason, watchmen remain alert for unusual light, smoke, or smell. As they walk, they listen. The city at night has its own sounds. The creak of wood as buildings cool, the soft movement of water in canals, the occasional step of someone returning late to an inn. Watchmen learn to recognize these normal sounds, so that anything unusual stands out clearly. When they announce the hours, they do so in a calm, steady voice. The call carries through the streets, reflecting off walls and bridges. It is not loud enough to wake most sleepers, but it reaches those who are awake or lightly resting. This sound serves several purposes. It confirms that the watch is active. It reassures residents that order is being maintained. It marks the slow passage of time through the night. People hear it and turn over in their sleep, comforted rather than disturbed. At gates and checkpoints, guards remain seated or standing quietly. Movement through the city is limited after certain hours, but enforcement is not aggressive. Travelers with proper reason are allowed through. Most people simply do not attempt to move about late at night. The city's design supports this calm approach. Streets are narrow and familiar. There are few places to hide or linger unnoticed. Communities are close-knit, and unfamiliar faces are noticed quickly. This reduces the need for constant intervention. The watchmen themselves are part of the neighborhood. They know the residents. They recognize the layout of each street. Their presence blends naturally into the city's routine. Time passes slowly during these hours. There's no pressure to move quickly. The watch is not a race against danger, but a steady confirmation that nothing has changed. Each round repeats the last. Between patrols, watchmen rest briefly. They sit near lanterns, warming their hands, exchanging quiet words. There is no excitement in the night, and none is expected. As the hours progress, the city grows quieter still. Even the few remaining lanterns are extinguished. Houses become dark shapes. Only official lights remain in certain places. The sound of the hour call becomes more noticeable as other noises fade. It drifts over rooftops, across water, and through open spaces. The city listens without fully waking. Inside homes, people respond without conscious thought. A sleeper shifts position. Another adjusts a blanket. Someone briefly wakes, notes the sound, and returns to sleep. This rhythm ties individual rest to communal order. Time, in this system, is not private. It is shared. The night watch does not signal change or urgency. It signals continuity. Each call confirms that the system holds, that peace remains intact. Toward the deepest part of the night, activity is minimal. Patrols continue, but movement is rare. Fires are extinguished. Doors remain closed. The city seems suspended. This is when Edo is most still. The watchmen become the city's quiet awareness, moving through darkness so others do not have to. Their presence allows the rest of the population to sleep deeply, untroubled by uncertainty. As dawn approaches, the nature of the watch changes slightly. The air cools further. Birds begin to stir faintly. The darkness softens. The final watches of the night mark the approach of morning. These calls feel different, not louder, but louder. They announce not just time passing, but time returning. Soon, the city will wake. Fires will be lit again. Shutters will open. The cycle will repeat. But for now, the night holds. The watch continues its slow movement through streets and across bridges. Lanterns sway gently with each step. Footfalls remain measured and calm. Edo rests because someone is always awake, not in alarm, but in quiet responsibility. And in that shared understanding, the city passes safely through the dark. The samurai without war in earlier centuries. The samurai lived by the demands of constant conflict. Their lives were shaped by preparation for battle, loyalty to a lord, and the ever-present possibility of death. But by the early 1700s, that way of life had largely disappeared. Peace changed the samurai more than any other group in Japan. Under the Tokugawa order, warfare was no longer a regular part of life. Armies were not raised. Castles were not besieged. Swords were still worn, but rarely used. For many samurai, generations passed without combat. Yet, the class itself remained. Samurai continued to occupy the highest social rank below the ruling family. They received stipends, usually paid in rice rather than wages. They lived in designated districts, often near the centers of administration. Their identity was preserved through custom, appearance, and duty. But their daily work had shifted. Instead of fighting, samurai became officials. They managed records, enforced laws, supervised towns and villages, and served as guards at gates and offices. Some acted as teachers, instructing children of other samurai families. Others worked as clerks, accountants, or inspectors. Their responsibilities required discipline, literacy, and reliability rather than strength alone. Education became central to samurai life. Boys were taught reading, writing, mathematics, and moral instruction from an early age. Classical texts were studied carefully. Confucian teachings about duty, loyalty, and self-control shaped how samurai were expected to behave. Physical training continued, but it was balanced with mental training. Swordsmanship was practiced as an art and discipline rather than preparation for combat. Archery, calligraphy, and etiquette were treated with equal seriousness. This balance reflected the new reality. A samurai's honor was no longer tested on the battlefield. It was tested in restraint, conduct, and service. Anger was considered weakness. Violence without cause was unacceptable. Many samurai struggled with this transition. Some found the new life restrictive. They carried symbols of power without opportunities to use them. Stipends were often modest, and rising prices made financial hardship common. A number of samurai lived simply, carefully managing limited resources. Others adapted well. They took pride in efficiency, learning, and quiet authority. They became administrators who valued order over force. Daily life for a samurai household was structured and disciplined. Mornings began early. Duties were attended to methodically. Clothing was plain but proper. Displays of wealth were discouraged. Evenings were quiet. After returning from official responsibilities, samurai spent time reading, practicing skills, or instructing their children. Meals were simple. Conversation focused on responsibility and conduct rather than ambition. At night, swords were placed carefully within reach, but not handled. They remained symbols of status and obligation rather than tools of action. The presence of samurai throughout Edo contributed to the city's calm. Their role was not to intimidate, but to represent authority through appearance and behavior. People understood the rules and followed them without constant enforcement. This reduced tension rather than increasing it. Samurai were expected to be examples. Their posture, speech, and actions were watched closely. Mistakes carried consequences, sometimes severe. Reputation mattered deeply. Because of this, many samurai moved cautiously through life. They avoided unnecessary conflict. They measured their words. They valued predictability. This careful behavior aligned well with Edo's broader culture. At night, samurai districts were among the quietest in the city. Homes were orderly. Lanterns were dimmed early. Households followed strict routines. Guards stationed at gates or offices maintained watch without aggression. Their presence was steady and familiar. The absence of war did not make samurai irrelevant. It reshaped their purpose. They became a stabilizing force, holding society together through administration rather than conquest. Their identity remained intact, even as its expression changed. For the rest of the population, this transformation contributed to a sense of safety. Authority existed, but it was not constantly asserted. Power was visible, but restrained. As darkness deepened over Edo, samurai households settled into rest like others. Duties for the day were complete. Records were stored. Gates were secured. The warrior class slept not in anticipation of battle, but in confidence that tomorrow would bring the same responsibilities as today. In this quiet transformation, the samurai embodied the Edo ideal. Strength expressed through control, order maintained through calm, and peace preserved through routine. Edo, the sleeping giant city, Edo, in the early 1700s. By the early 18th century, Edo had become the center of life in Japan. It was not the capital in name, but in practice it held power, people, and purpose. From Tsuwaidlo City, the Tokugawa shoguns governed the country, and from all directions, roads led steadily toward it. Edo was already one of the largest cities in the world. Hundreds of thousands of people lived within its boundaries. Some estimates placed its population near 1 million. Yet despite its size, the city did not feel crowded in the way modern cities do. Buildings were low, streets were narrow, and open spaces were woven throughout neighborhoods. Wood was the primary material. Houses, shops, bridges, warehouses, and even many official buildings were built from timber. Roofs were tiled or thatched. Walls were light and flexible, made to adapt rather than resist. This design reflected both practicality and experience. Fires were a constant risk, and earthquakes were not uncommon. Structures were built to be repaired, rebuilt, and replaced without great ceremony. Edo was divided into districts, each with its own character. Samurai neighborhoods were quieter, more orderly, and set back from busy streets. Merchant areas were lively during the day, filled with trade, noise, and movement. Artisan quarters smelled of wood shavings, dye, metal, and lacquer. As evening approached, these differences softened. The busy parts of the city slowed first. Shops closed their doors. Goods were secured. Voices lowered. Foot traffic thinned. In the samurai districts, the change was subtle, as the day had already been restrained. Bridges spanned Edo's many rivers and canals, connecting neighborhoods like threads in fabric. During the day, these waterways carried boats loaded with rice, firewood, and supplies. At night, they became quiet ribbons of dark water reflecting lantern light. Edo did not glow after sunset. It dimmed. Lanterns were placed sparingly. They lit entrances, corners, and crossings, but much of the city remained in shadow. This was intentional. Light was precious, and excess was unnecessary. Moving through Edo at night required familiarity. Residents knew which streets curved where, which bridges were steep, which paths narrowed unexpectedly. Visitors moved slowly, guided by memory and the soft guidance of light. The city's sound changed with the light. During the day, Edo was filled with calls, bargaining, tools, and footsteps. At night, those sounds faded, replaced by quieter ones, the creak of wood, the splash of oars, distant voices carried by air. Watchtowers stood at intervals, manned by guards who observed rather than intervened. Their presence was reassuring, not imposing. They were part of the city's structure, as expected as the bridges and canals. Fires were the greatest danger after dark. Because of this, strict rules governed the use of flame. Candles were watched carefully. Cooking fires were extinguished early. Patrols paid close attention to smoke or unusual light. This constant awareness made nights disciplined and controlled. Inside homes, space was used efficiently. Rooms served multiple purposes. During the day, they were open and active. At night, they were rearranged. Furniture was minimal. Futons were unrolled. Lamps were dimmed. Walls made of paper allowed sound to travel easily. Because of this, people were mindful of noise. Voices were kept low. Movements were careful, courtesy extended beyond the household. This awareness of others shaped Edo's night culture. Even in such a large city, people behaved as though they were always being quietly observed. As darkness deepened, official gates at certain points were closed. Movement slowed further. Only those with reason remained out late, guards, messengers, and travelers staying near inns. For most residents, the night was a time for rest, not activity. Yet, Edo never fully slept. Some districts remained faintly active. Night watchmen made their rounds, boatmen secured vessels. Temple caretakers tended lamps. A few inns kept doors open for late arrivals. Still, compared to daylight, the city felt suspended, paused between one day and the next. The absence of artificial noise made natural sounds clearer. Wind moved through wooden structures. Water lapped against canal walls. Insects filled the spaces between footsteps. From a distance, the city appeared as a scattered pattern of small lights surrounded by darkness. No towering structures, no illuminated skyline. Just a wide, quiet spread of human life settling into rest. Edo's size did not make it restless. Its organization made it calm. People trusted the city to hold together through the night. They trusted the rules, the patrols, and each other. This trust allowed them to let go of the day without anxiety. As lamps were extinguished one by one, neighborhoods faded into shadow. The city's edges blurred. Edo became less a place of activity and more a landscape of quiet forms and familiar paths. For those lying down to sleep, the city's vastness was not overwhelming. It was comforting. It meant supply lines would continue. Order would be maintained. Tomorrow would arrive as expected. In the stillness of Edo at night, the scale of the city did not press inward. Instead, it expanded outward, allowing each household its own quiet space. This was the sleeping giant present, stable and silent beneath the night sky. In Edo Japan, the evening meal marks the true end of the day. It is not elaborate, nor is it rushed. Instead, it follows patterns shaped by availability, habit, and respect for balance. Whether in the city or the countryside, this meal brings households together before rest. Food at this time is simple and familiar. Rice forms the center of most meals. It is steamed carefully and served in individual bowls. Alongside it are small dishes, pickled vegetables, miso soup, perhaps fish or tofu when available. Portions are modest. Nothing is wasted. Meals are prepared earlier in the evening to reduce the risk of fire. Cooking fires are lit, used efficiently, and then extinguished. Pots are cleaned and set aside. The kitchen area becomes quiet again. Families sit close together, often on the floor. There are no raised voices. Conversation remains calm and practical. People speak about what has happened during the day and what must be done tomorrow. This time together reinforces routine. Children learn by observing. They see how food is handled carefully, how bowls are placed properly, how gratitude is expressed through simple gestures. There are few instructions. The habits are absorbed naturally. In many homes, meals begin with a brief moment of acknowledgement. It may be a spoken phrase or a silent pause. This is not ceremony, but recognition of effort of those who grew, prepared, and served the food. Eating is unhurried. Bites are taken slowly. People stop when satisfied rather than full. This measured pace allows the body to settle as the day winds down. After eating, dishes are cleared immediately. There is no lingering over the table. Everything returns to order quickly. Mats are brushed. Utensils are stored. The transition from meal to rest is smooth. In Edo, merchants close their accounts for the day. Artisans put away tools. Samurai complete their records. In villages, farmers stretch tired muscles and rinse their hands. Evenings are not a time for stimulation. Entertainment exists, but it is subdued. A story may be told. A song may be hummed. A child may ask a question. There are no bright lights to keep people awake. Lanterns provide only enough illumination to move safely. As lamps are dimmed, activities naturally slow. This pattern supports early sleep. Without distractions, fatigue is allowed to surface. Bodies respond to darkness. Eyes adjust. Breathing deepens. Food plays a role in this transition. Meals are designed to sustain rather than excite. Strong flavors are rare at night. Heavy foods are avoided. The goal is comfort, not indulgence. This approach reflects a broader philosophy. Balance is preferred over excess. Consistency is valued over variety. In households across Japan, these evenings repeat night after night. The familiarity itself is calming. There is no uncertainty about what comes next. For those living alone, the pattern remains similar. A single bowl of rice, a quiet corner, a brief pause before sleep. For larger families, the rhythm is shared. Everyone adjusts to the same pace. Outside, the world grows quieter as these routines unfold. Streets empty. Fields rest. The sounds of movement fade. Inside, people prepare their sleeping spaces. Futons are laid out. Clothing is folded. Personal items are set aside. The evening meal becomes a dividing line between effort and rest. Once it is complete, there is little reason to remain active. Work has ended. Tomorrow will arrive on its own. This acceptance of closure is important. People do not carry the day's worries into the night. There is no expectation of constant productivity. The body is allowed to rest fully. This does not mean life is without hardship. Work is demanding. Resources can be limited. Responsibilities are many, but evenings offer a pause that is respected by everyone. As lamps are extinguished, the household enters darkness together. Breathing becomes the dominant sound. The day dissolves quietly. Across Edo Japan, thousands of homes follow the same pattern at the same time. Simply, meals, quiet evenings. Rest without resistance. The night continues, unbroken. Shrines that breathe with nature throughout Edo Japan. Shinto shrines are woven quietly into daily life. They are not separate from the world around them. Instead, they sit within forests, beside paths, near rivers, or at the edge of villages, blending naturally with their surroundings. These shrines do not dominate the landscape. They do not rise high or demand attention. Many are small, simple structures made of wood, left unpainted or lightly treated, so they weather gently over time. At night, they become even quieter. There is no gathering after dark, no ceremony, no voices. The shrine remains present without activity, a familiar part of the environment rather than a destination. Shinto belief centers on kami, spirits associated with natural elements and places. Trees, stones, water, and wind are all treated with respect. Because of this, the area around a shrine is kept clean and undisturbed. Paths leading to shrines are swept regularly. Fallen branches are moved aside. Offerings are modest, perhaps a small amount of food or a simple token left during the day. By evening, everything is settled. A torii gate may stand at the entrance, marking the transition from ordinary space to sacred space. Passing through it is not dramatic. It is simply a reminder to be aware. At night, the gate stands in shadow. Moonlight outlines its shape. There is no need for light or sound. Shrines are not locked away. They are protected through familiarity and respect rather than barriers. People know where they are and how to behave around them. In villages, children grow up passing the same shrine each day. They learn, without instruction, that this place is to be treated gently. They carry this understanding into adulthood. In Edo, shrines are scattered among neighborhoods. Some are large and well-known. Others are small and local, serving only a few streets. Each one fits into its setting without interruption. At night, the presence of these shrines adds to the sense of calm. There is an understanding that the space is watched over not in a controlling way, but in a protective one. People do not expect miracles. They expect continuity. Shinto does not focus on written doctrine or strict rules. It emphasizes cleanliness, respect, and harmony with the environment. These values align naturally with the rhythm of Edo life. As darkness deepens, the natural elements surrounding shrines become more noticeable. Leaves move in the wind. Water flows steadily. Insects continue their calls. The shrine does not interrupt these sounds. It accepts them. It accepts them. This quiet acceptance influences how people feel at night. There is less anxiety about unseen forces. Nature is not viewed as hostile, but as shared space. Even when passing near a shrine after dark, people do not hurry. They walk as they always do. A brief nod or pause may be offered, but nothing more. The sacred is integrated, not separated. This integration carries into the home as well. Small household shrines or symbolic spaces reflect the same principles. There is no pressure to perform rituals. Respect is shown through care and attention. At night, these spaces are left alone. No candles are lit. No offerings are made. They exist quietly, like everything else. In times of trouble, people may visit shrines during the day. They may pray for health, harvest, or protection. But at night, the expectation is rest for both people and places. The shrine rests as the village rests. This shared rhythm strengthens the sense of stability. Life is not constantly interrupted by demands for attention or action. There is space for quiet. As people lie down to sleep, they know these places remain unchanged. Trees will still stand. Paths will still lead where they always have. The presence of the shrine will be the same in the morning. This consistency is comforting. In a world without constant noise or distraction, such steady markers matter. They anchor people to their environment. The night passes without incident. The shrine remains undisturbed. Wind and moonlight move freely through its space. There is no need for guarding or control. The calm of Edo Japan is supported not only by laws and watchmen, but by these quiet agreements between people and their surroundings. Shrines that breathe with nature do not demand belief. They simply exist, reminding everyone that rest, balance, and continuity are part of daily life. Zen temples and the art of stillness, alongside Shinto shrines. Zen Buddhist temples play a quiet but important role in Edo Japan. While shrines blend into natural spaces, temples tend to be more structured. They are places of study, discipline, and reflection, yet they remain calm rather than imposing. By night, Zen temples are almost completely still. Most temples are located slightly away from busy streets, often near hills, groves of trees, or the edge of a town. Their layout is simple and purposeful. Buildings are arranged around open courtyards. Paths are clear and uncluttered. Stone lanterns line walkways, but they are not usually lit at night. The temple relies on moonlight and memory. Those who live there know the grounds well and do not need guidance. Monks follow strict routines that change little from day to day. Their lives are shaped by repetition rather than variety. Meals are taken at set times. Work, study, and meditation follow a steady pattern. As night arrives, activity slows. Evening meditation may take place shortly after sunset. Monks sit quietly, facing a wall or an open space. There is no music. No instruction is spoken aloud. Each person settles into stillness at their own pace. Once meditation ends, the temple becomes silent. Candles are extinguished. Doors are closed gently. Footsteps become rare. The air cools, and the scent of wood and stone becomes more noticeable. The purpose of this quiet is not escape. It is attention. Zen practice emphasizes awareness of the present moment. There is no focus on future reward or distant concern. The act of sitting, breathing, and observing is enough. At night, this approach aligns naturally with the world outside. Darkness removes distractions. Sound fades. The mind has fewer places to wander. Temples are designed to support this state. Floors are swept clean. Rooms contain little furniture. Walls are bare. There is nothing to draw the eye or occupy the hands. Even small sounds become noticeable: the shifting of cloth, the creak of a beam, the movement of air. Rather than disturbing, these sounds are accepted. They are part of the moment. Some monks sleep lightly, waking early for the next day's routines. Others rest more deeply, trusting the structure of the temple to guide them. There is no fear of interruption. The temple grounds are respected. Visitors do not enter after dark. The boundary is understood without enforcement. For people outside the temple, the presence of these quiet spaces contributes to the overall calm of the night. Even those who do not practice Zen are aware of the temples nearby. They know there are places dedicated to stillness. This knowledge has an effect. It suggests that rest and reflection are valued, not avoided. That silence has a purpose. In Edo, temples also serve administrative roles. They keep records, manage cemeteries, and provide education. But at night, these functions disappear. Only the quiet remains. Temple bells may ring at certain times, but not frequently. When they do, the sound is low and steady, carrying across rooftops and open spaces. It fades slowly, leaving silence behind. This sound does not demand attention. It simply marks presence. As the night deepens, the temple seems to merge with its surroundings. Buildings fade into shadow. Courtyards become open darkness. Trees and walls blend together. The distinction between constructed space and natural space softens. This blending reflects the Zen view that separation is temporary, that divisions are useful during the day, but less important at night. For those living in Edo Japan, temples offer reassurance. They represent continuity, discipline, and calm. They do not react to change quickly. They remain steady, even when life outside shifts. As people lie awake, briefly before sleep, the thought of a nearby temple may come to mind, not as a destination, but as a presence. Some may have visited earlier in the day, others may never go inside. Still, the temple's role is understood. It holds quiet. The night passes without disturbance. No lights flare, no voices rise. The temple remains as it is, simple, ordered, and still. By morning, activity will resume. Bells will ring again. Monks will move through their routines. Visitors will arrive. But for now, the temple rests. In its stillness, it reflects the wider calm of Edo Japan, a society that values restraint, repetition, and quiet attention. The floating world after dusk. Not all of Edo grows silent at the same time. While most of the city settles into rest, certain districts remain gently active after sunset. These areas are known as the Yukio, often translated as the floating world. They exist apart from daily duties, offering controlled spaces for leisure and release. Even here, the night remains restrained. The floating world does not resemble chaos or excess. It follows rules, schedules, and expectations just like the rest of Edo. Activity is concentrated, predictable, and contained. These districts are carefully located and regulated. Gates mark their boundaries. Guards monitor movement. Everyone knows where they are allowed to go and when. As evening deepens, lanterns glow a little brighter in these areas. Shops, tea houses, and performance spaces open their doors. Music drifts softly through the air, carried by strings and voices trained for subtlety rather than volume. People arrive gradually. Visitors come from different walks of life: merchants, artisans, some samurai. They arrive after finishing their daily responsibilities. This time is considered separate from work, but not separate from order. Dress is neat, behavior is measured, excess is discouraged. Entertainment is designed to engage without overwhelming. Performances follow familiar patterns. Stories are known, movements are controlled. Nothing is improvised wildly. Conversation remains polite. Laughter exists, but it is contained. There is no shouting. Disputes are rare. Food and drink are offered in moderation. Portions are small. Flavors are refined rather than strong. The goal is enjoyment without losing composure. These spaces serve a social function. They provide relief from rigid roles without threatening the structure of society. They allow expression within boundaries. This balance is essential to maintaining long-term calm. As night progresses, activity peaks briefly and then slowly declines. Visitors leave in small groups. Lanterns dim. Music softens. By the later hours, even the floating world quiets. Workers close doors. Performers rest. Staff clean and prepare for the next day. Nothing continues into the early morning. The city does not allow night to stretch indefinitely. Outside these districts, the contrast is clear. Streets are dark and quiet. Movement is minimal. The floating world remains contained, not spilling outward. This separation preserves the calm of the wider city. For those who do not visit these areas, the floating world exists as an idea rather than a presence. They may hear distant music or see a brighter cluster of lights, but it does not disturb their rest. Even within the floating world, there is awareness of time. Watchmen announce hours. Schedules are followed. Closing times are respected. No one forgets where they are. This controlled leisure reflects Edo society's approach to balance. Pleasure is permitted, but never allowed to dominate. Rest is valued more highly than excitement. As the night deepens, the floating world fades into quiet. Lanterns are extinguished. Music ends. The last visitors depart. By the time most of the city is fully asleep, these districts have already begun to settle. The temporary nature of the floating world is part of its design. It offers escape without permanence. Tomorrow, the same routines will return. Work will resume. Duties will be met. For now, the night moves. Toward its deepest point, Edo returns to stillness. Rain, fog, and the passing seasons in Edo Japan. The night is shaped not only by human routine, but by weather and season. Rain, fog, wind, and temperature are constant companions, quietly influencing how people move, rest, and think. These elements are not treated as interruptions. They are expected parts of life. Rain often arrives in the evening. Clouds gather during the day, and by nightfall, soft rain begins to fall. It taps lightly on roofs, seeps into packed earth, and flows steadily through channels and gutters. In the city, water collects along stone edges and wooden bridges. In villages, it darkens soil and fills irrigation paths. People are accustomed to this sound. Rain at night does not cause alarm. Homes are built to handle it. Roofs are angled. Floors are raised. Doors are secured. Lanterns are protected. Inside, rain becomes background noise. It blends with breathing and sleep, neither demanding attention nor causing concern. Fog is also common, especially near rivers and low ground. It rolls in quietly, softening edges and reducing visibility. Lantern light diffuses through it, creating faint halos rather than sharp points. Fog slows movement. Those who remain awake move carefully, guided by memory rather than sight. Watchmen take shorter steps. Boatmen reduce speed. Sound becomes more important than vision. For those already resting, fog changes nothing. Sleep continues uninterrupted. Seasonal changes are accepted without resistance. In summer, nights are warmer. Windows and doors are opened to allow air to circulate. Mosquito nets are hung carefully. People sleep lightly, waking briefly as heat shifts. In autumn, air cools quickly after sunset. Blankets are pulled closer. The smell of fallen leaves and drying fields drifts through open spaces. Winter brings longer nights and deeper darkness. Fires are used more carefully. Homes feel smaller and more contained. People go to bed earlier and rise later. Spring brings damp air and changing temperatures. Rain returns. Growth begins. Again, these cycles repeat year after year. There is no expectation that weather should be controlled. People adjust themselves instead. Clothing changes. Schedules shift slightly. Work adapts. At night, this acceptance creates calm. Rain does not ruin plans because there are few plans at night. Fog does not delay activity because activity is already minimal. Cold does not frustrate because warmth is prepared for. The passing of seasons is marked by small changes rather than dramatic ones. Lantern oil lasts longer or shorter. Futons grow thicker or thinner. Meals shift slightly in content. That is so. Time moves slowly in this environment. Without artificial light or constant stimulation, people remain aware of natural cues. They sense when night is deeper or lighter. They notice when dawn approaches earlier or later. This awareness keeps them connected to the world outside their homes. As people sleep, rain may come and go. Wind may rise briefly and then fade. None of this requires response unless it becomes extreme, which is rare. Most nights pass quietly. This steadiness reinforces a broader mindset. Change is inevitable, but it does not need to be rushed or resisted. Everything moves in its own time. By the deepest part of the night, weather often settles. Rain eases, fog thins, the air becomes still. In these moments, Edo Japan feels suspended between days. Nothing presses forward, nothing pulls back. People sleep through these transitions without noticing. When morning comes, the world will look slightly different. Ground will be damp. Air may be cooler. Clouds may linger. These differences are accepted without comment. At night, however, they are simply part of the background quiet companions to rest. In this way, rain, fog, and seasons shape the night without disturbing it. They pass through gently, leaving sleep intact. When all of Japan sleeps by the deepest hours of the night, movement across Japan has nearly stopped. In Edo, in distant villages, in mountain towns and coastal settlements, the same quiet has settled everywhere. Lamps are out, fires are covered, doors remain closed. The country is asleep. This moment does not arrive suddenly. It comes gradually, as each household completes the same familiar steps. One light after another disappears. One sound after another fades. Eventually, nothing remains except breathing, wind, and the faint movement of water. In Edo, the vast city lies dark and still. Streets are empty. Bridges carry no footsteps. Canals reflect only the sky. Watchmen continue their slow patrols, but even their calls are softer now, blending into the night rather than cutting through it. The systems that govern the city remain in place, even when unseen. Gates are closed. Records are secured. Order holds without effort. In samurai districts, households rest quietly. Swords remain untouched. Duties wait until morning. There is no anticipation of conflict, only the expectation of routine. In merchant and artisan neighborhoods, tools lie where they were placed. Shops will open again at first light. Goods will be displayed. Trades will resume without interruption. In rural villages, fields lie undisturbed. Water continues to flow through channels. Animals rest. Homes are dark and silent beneath the open sky. The land itself seems to pause. Shrines stand quietly among trees. Temples remain closed and still. No prayers are spoken. No bells are rung. These places rest as the people do. Weather moves through gently. A breeze passes. Clouds shift. Rain may fall briefly and then stop. None of it causes concern. This is a country shaped by repetition and restraint. The night reflects that character. There are no sudden changes, no unexpected sounds, no need for alertness beyond what is already in place. People sleep deeply because they trust the world around them. They trust the systems that hold society together. They trust the routines that shape their days. They trust that morning will arrive as expected. This trust is the foundation of rest. There are no clocks glowing in the dark, no signals demanding attention. Time moves quietly, marked only by the body's natural rhythms and the distant awareness of the night watch. Breathing slows, muscles release, thoughts drift and then settle. Across the country, millions of small, private moments of rest unfold at the same time. Each person sleeps in their own way, yet all are held by the same quiet. The past does not intrude. The future does not press forward. Only the present remains, unremarked and calm. As the night begins its gradual turn toward morning, the first subtle changes occur. The air shifts slightly. Darkness softens at its edges. Birds stir faintly in distant trees. Most people do not notice. Sleep continues. This is a success of the Edo world not in grand achievements or dramatic events, but in the ability to create nights like this. Nights without fear. Nights without urgency. Nights where rest is possible for nearly everyone. When morning comes, life will resume its steady pace. Doors will open. Fires will be lit. The same tasks will return. But for now, nothing is required. Japan sleeps held together by quiet understanding, careful order, and acceptance of time as it passes. And in that shared stillness, the night completes its work. Our journey through Edo, Japan now comes to rest. The lanterns have gone dark. The streets are quiet. Villages, cities, temples, and fields all lie peacefully beneath the night sky. Thank you for sharing this quiet time with me, for listening, and for resting. The spoken story ends here. And now, gentle relaxing music will begin, continuing softly through the night, to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Good night, and rest well. And rest well.